Hello everyone, welcome to a quick video that I wanted to make about a subject that often comes up in the comment section of my videos, especially my Nintendo Switch shmup reviews. And since there is a new batch of Nintendo Switch shmups coming out that I'm looking forward to, like Death Smiles, like DFK, like Espagaluda 2, I thought it'd be good to get ahead of the curve and go ahead and give my thoughts on this topic, because I've basically tried every single configuration I can think of when it comes to playing the Nintendo Switch in handheld mode. That is the subject of today's video, by the way. What is the best way to play the Nintendo Switch in handheld mode? And the reason why I've been interested in this subject for so long is because even though I am really into playing on PC and playing on PS4, I do like playing on the Switch specifically for its handheld capabilities and being able to practice games on the go, or if I don't have access to my full setup, maybe I'm out and about. I do think there can be value in being able to practice the games in a handheld form, but the big problem that has always reared its head when it's come to playing shmups on handhelds is how do you control these games effectively in handheld mode, especially when it comes to viewing the games and of course the tiny aspect ratio you're often forced to deal with. Recently I actually made a video about this with the Ketsui DS port, and I thought the real strong point of that port was its ability to make the aspect ratio kind of different but work on a handheld. But since the Switch is basically a console that you can carry around with you, the question now becomes, okay, how do you get that console experience or something close to it in handheld form? And like I said, I've gone through and tested every single commercial option that I've been aware of over the years, and I've also made my own homebrew ones to try and figure out what is the best way to play these games. And the conclusion I come to is probably a little bit different than what a lot of you are already doing, so this might be helpful. But let's begin by reviewing the first and most popular option that most people are going to recommend right out the gate, which is the much beloved FlipGrip. And I will say I was an original backer of the FlipGrip. I got the original batch. I have had my FlipGrip for many years. I've used it for hundreds of hours, so I'm not trying to smear this thing or say it's not good. But the FlipGrip does have some critical flaws when it comes to being able to play shmups on it, and these flaws aren't necessarily pointed out all that often. So what's really great about the FlipGrip, of course, is that you're able to now play in Tate. I always play in Tate when I'm playing on console or on PC, so of course I was very excited about this idea and why I was so enthusiastic to support it when it came out. I didn't need to sit through the whole infographic to understand the implication of being able to play in this aspect ratio in handheld mode. I do think the way it's built and the way it works makes a lot of sense. However, the huge critical flaw with this thing is that the only controllers you can really use on it that I'm aware of are the original JoyCons with the Nintendo Switch. And the problem with the original JoyCons is twofold. The first problem is, of course, the lack of the D-pad on the left Joy-Con. Now, I have done all kinds of mods that have been suggested to try and make that lack of D-pad on the left Joy-Con more effective. Like you can do this case mod that sort of brings a D-pad on top of the button micro switches. The problem is, if you open up the Joy-Con and look at it, there isn't a D-pad like configuration there. It's actually buttons even on the circuit board. So the problem is when you go to play it, at first it feels alright, but the directions and the D-pad are flat, and what ends up happening is that your diagonal inputs get really messy and it's pretty inaccurate. And sometimes I almost wonder if it's better just to play with the left Joy-Con stick rather than trying to play with the modified D-pad. So that is the huge problem with the left side of the Joy-Con. And then the right side of the Joy-Con is that they're just these tiny little widgets. The problem is that if you're trying to play really intense shmups like Esperade or Mushihime-sama on the FlipGrip, even if you do make the compromise of playing with the left analog on the left Joy-Con, on the right Joy-Con, you're going to find after about half an hour, your hand is going to start cramping up. Unless you have little tiny hands, I guess maybe that'd be alright. But for me, after about a half hour of play on this FlipGrip, my hands just cannot hang in there. So because of these two flaws, the lack of a strong D-pad option because of the Joy-Con itself, and also just the small size of the Joy-Cons, and I do think the FlipGrip, they could have tried to do something to make it a little bit more molded so you could have a little bit more support when you hold it, maybe make it a little wider. I don't know, they could have done something also to make the gripping of the FlipGrip a little more ergonomic. So unfortunately, because of those two reasons, I actually very rarely use the FlipGrip these days. I do know that a lot of people out there still enjoy using the FlipGrip, If you're playing like arcade pinball games, I think the FlipGrip's great because you don't need a D-pad, you just need the bumpers. But as far as playing shmups, I just don't think it has enough of the elements nailed down, even though the fact that you can play in Tate mode is a massive bonus. And let me assure you, I have tried many times over the years to try and make this work because I love the idea of being able to play in the vertical aspect ratio, but I just haven't been able to get it to work. So how do I play the Switch? Of course, there's all kinds of other ways you can play it, like if you play it on a stand, or if you hook up your arcade stick to it and you have it kind of on your lap. You can do all that sort of stuff, but I'm talking about in true handheld mode where you sort of carry it around with you. And I've come up with an interesting configuration, but one that I think is very effective. And over the years, I've actually cleared games on this. I practiced on this. This has just been the strongest and most reliable way of playing the Nintendo Switch for me, which is that I have to buy two different products here. So on the left side, what you want to buy is the left Hori Joy-Con. Now the problem with the Hori Joy-Con is that it doesn't have any Bluetooth features in it, so you can't use it on the FlipGrip, unfortunately. However, when you're playing with it on the actual console itself, it feels fantastic. I have the Japanese one. They have American ones as well that are like Legend of Zelda and stuff. I don't know how actually those feel, but I do know the blue Japanese one of the best D-pads I've ever used, point blank, even counting console controllers like the Super Nintendo and everything like that. I think this left Hori Joy-Con is absolutely fantastic. But the problem is you run into this like with the FlipGrip. Okay, you have your left Hori Joy-Con, then maybe you have your stock right Joy-Con, and you're holding them in your hands. For about half an hour, it feels alright, feels good. But as you're going away, pressing at those buttons, switching from shot to focus, to bomb, maybe you're switching your movement type in Mushi-Musama, you're going to find that your hand, again, is cramping after about a half an hour of use. And it gets really noticeable too because you're trying to hold the console as you're working all these different buttons, and they're so tiny, they're like little M&Ms. So what do you do about the right side, about holding it? Well, you can buy something called the Hori Split Pad Pro. I promise you this video is not sponsored by Hori, it just happens to be that they make the best accessories here. And the problem with the Hori Split Pad Pro is that if you're playing a 3D style game where you're using the analog stick, like you're playing Doom or Bayonetta or something, this thing is awesome for that. However, if you're trying to play 2D games, what I found is that that D-pad on the left of the Split Pad Pro is just way too far away. It doesn't feel ergonomic at all. It feels clunky. You can tell when they made this thing, they were really focusing heavily on that left analog joystick, and they sort of forgot, oh, the D-pad is sort of an afterthought. So the compromise is that on the right side, you have the Hori Split Pad Pro. Then on the left side, you have the blue Hori Joy-Con. You combine those together, and that's where the magic happens. The only drawback of this, in my opinion, is that of course you're not able to play rotated. You still have to play horizontal aspect ratio, which means that usually when I'm playing it, I have it right up on my face. I mean, it's like right there to try and compensate for the small screen size. But even still, I will take small screen size any day over the problems with the lack of precision with the left analog stick on the stock Joy-Cons. Of course, being able to play for only about half hour or so before your hand cramps up on the FlipGrip. This thing you can sit down and shmup for hours. Really, the only thing that's going to get strained is your eyes. But if you get it pretty nice and close to your face, it's fantastic. And I do know some people don't like the Split Pad Pro because of the whole portability aspect of it. But I will say, of course, since it is the Nintendo Switch, what I tend to do is I take off the right side and then I put it in its case with the left Joy-Con still on there. Then when I pull it out of the case, I just pull the right Split Pad Pro out of my backpack or in a pocket or whatever, and I slip it back on. So a little bit of extra work there, but the extra comfort really goes a long way. Another thing I really like about the Split Pad Pro is that it has a built-in turbo feature, which can be really useful because some Nintendo Switch games don't have built-in turbo, or their built-in turbo isn't all that great. Being able to use built-in turbo, especially for games that aren't necessarily supposed to have turbo, like Fight and Rage. I use the built-in turbo for Fight and Rage. Feels great. And if you're playing horizontals, this is just magic. So if you're going to play Death Smiles, this is definitely the way to go. There's no drawbacks. Same thing with Rolling Gunner. The horizontal shmups and this thing are a very nice combination. It's only when you're playing the vertical shmups, which of course are my favorites, that it's a little bit of a bummer. But again, I've tried everything. Not only have I tried to use the FlipGrip, but I've also tried just manually flipping it. And I've even tried using the bottom left Joy-Con as an entire controller. I've tried the overhand method, as I call it, where you hold it with the top hand and you sort of move the D-pad with the bottom hand. And that works for about 20 minutes, but then it's just so awkward and you're not getting a good grip on the D-pad. And if you need to bomb, it's like, okay, I can shoot, I can focus shot, but where the hell is my bomb button? You have to like come up with something weird there. There's just not quite enough things going on to be able to make that work. So in the end, over the years, I've been forced to play in horizontal aspect ratio on the Nintendo Switch. It isn't as glamorous or as snazzy as playing on the FlipGrip, but I think in the long run, it is the better way to go. Until, of course, they make a Split Pad Pro type thing that has Bluetooth in it, and you can use it with the FlipGrip, that would be the ideal. Or they make the FlipGrip able to somehow transmit the Bluetooth to your Joy-Cons. They could add that. I don't think they will, but something like that would be really cool. So yes, that's just my advice if you want to play the Switch in handheld mode, which I use 99% of the time when I play the Switch. My dock, other than when I record footage or something, never gets used. So to me, the Switch is a handheld, and so this is how I like to play it. And hopefully this is some useful advice to some of you who have been struggling to play it in handheld mode and trying to figure something out. So thanks so much. So thank you to the $5 patrons: 100, 72 PCT Water, Ukshay Wadker, Dingo, Another Joe, Anthony A, Aaron Solis, Ben, Borgie22, Brian Reboot, Brian Shiver, Chris Yuzefovich, Chronic Burnout 3, Corio, CRC Error, Danielle Savage, Darren Griffin, Delta Tango 6, Disco Star Slayer, DJ420 Praise It, Entropy, Eric H, FCK, Frank Carter, Full Set, Retro Schmupper, Geriatric Donmaku, Hausu, Ilya, Kiwi, JLab, JBRPG, Joe Angelo, John Kelly, Gameboy Guru, K, K2, Kikoman 589, Larridge, Malaise, Mark Toms, Maz, Minung, Mechalin, Mitch LY, Queen Charlene, Nathaniel Davis, and Electron Nia Dagger Games, Oklo Kugels, Philip Mason, Portal 63, Radocat, Raul, Real Skeen, Self-Aware, Shane Shinsiensky, Sketchy Raccoon, SLW, The Boot Rex, The Real Ikuzo, TRM, Sugumo, Twilight EX, Yishi, Plasmo, and Yuzakaya. Thanks for watching.